Well, thank you very much. And I am so excited to be here today. What a fantastic event. The entire day focusing on the future and how we as youth can participate in it and move forwards. I am so excited to be sharing with you some of my thoughts about acting responsibly in the new digital age. So thank you very much for your introduction. And I just wanted to share with you as CEO and co-founder of SUNYM, but also as part of the United Nations University Institute on Comparative Regional Integration Studies and the VUB, my passion is to bring people together to solve the world's most complex problems, whether that is locally, nationally, internationally. The purpose is that we need to build solutions together. And this is why coming together with people from all these different environments, regardless of background, regardless of geographical location, regardless of status or class, that we have come over this past day to discuss these is a wonderful, wonderful achievement. So my congratulations to the organization and all of you who are still here at the end of this really packed day. I imagine that you have learned a lot of new things today, and I hope I can contribute to that. So before I start, I want to ask you if you're interested to have a little bit of an interactive session. So I organized something on Mentimedia. I have a little bit of a poll question. And to share my screen, I would need to ask the host to make me a co-host, and then I can share the screen with you. So you can see the questions that I would like to ask you.
We'll share your screen.
And then if you're here, I hope that you're here, then we can have a little bit of a discussion to see how things affect you, because it's very nice of me to say hello from the Netherlands and share with you my experience. But what I'm experiencing now and what you're experiencing might not always be the same.
Yes, you can now share the screen.
Fantastic. So acting responsibly, my experience, but what about yours? I actually wanted to address a little bit about 4 topics, and I realize that my time is very short, so I'm going to try and do my best to keep it going and hopefully answer your questions as succinct as possible. But these are the topics I wanted to talk about. I wanted to look how digital requires us to re-navigate the relationships that we're building, both in real life, but also virtually. I want to look at the skills for the changing workplace that we're facing. Of course, we've had lots of discussions about security online, but in line with one of the major themes of this conference, I want to talk about the alarming environmental impact of the internet and how you, as an individual, can help. So technological changes that we're facing is merging our online and our offline worlds. And the increasing speed of development technology that is happening has come together in creating a new world in which we're living both online and offline. It is very difficult to navigate this space, especially when we realize the requirement of access to infrastructure is. Do we actually have access to the internet? Does everybody have Wi-Fi? How are you capable of accessing the information that you need to be able to move to the next step? The first thing I wanted to address, therefore, was to look at our relationships that we're facing. Normally, we looked at our geographical location, people that you're having in your environment, meeting up for a cup of coffee, seeing each other on the street and saying hello. But now we are continuing our real life relationships online. We are choosing how to engage and the manner in which we're engaging. The social landscape we're talking about, the social media platforms that we're living in, the friendships that are now based on interests rather than geographical. How many of you have friends in other locations outside of your geographical sphere, but you're passionate, for example, about music, you're passionate about TV series, and you have these discussions with them about it? Are you passionate about peace building? I have the pleasure to look at the participants list and realize how many people I've met before who are so passionate about creating peace in their societies and being able, every time we meet online, to come back and have these discussions about how are we making progress on peace? How are we moving to the future? But these discussions, of course, come with the changing expectations and how to respond. Culture is a really big factor. I'm now here based in Europe in the Netherlands. You can see it's really sunny. The speaker before me talked about the beautiful, beautiful sunset that you're having right now there. While here it's so hot and humid, and we have to accommodate the different time zones. We have to accommodate the different understanding of how we're responding to each other. Have you ever considered time? Have you ever considered how time is important in the manner of how our relationships are manifesting itself? So I'm going to ask you to go on the Mentimeter. So if you go to www.menti.com and use the code 41374 that you can see at the top of the screen, you can see that I've asked you a question. As soon as I receive a text message, A, I respond immediately regardless of where I am. B, I respond as soon as I'm available. C, I respond when it's convenient for me. Or D, I respond if it's important or interesting. This is a question about time. For example, in my case, I respond in my own time. I primarily live in the real world. I primarily live sitting at a table with my friends, having discussions. So when I'm with people in a room, I mostly set my phone aside. I will look sometimes if there's an emergency, like my mom is calling, or a friend has locked themselves out of their room, which has happened before, and they need a place to stay. But otherwise, I will wait until there's the right time for me to really dedicate my time to make sure that they get a response where I have looked at the message and really read it. I'm not following someone's time schedule. And this is the same way how I feel about emails, and how I respond. And how I respond is depending on the time and the capacity to address it. But for others, of course, their real life communications is just as real as their online communications, an extension of their day-to-day experience. So my question is what do you do? From what I can see from the poll, and I hope that you can see it as well, is that the majority of you responded with, I respond when it's convenient to me. I hope to be able to have a little bit of discussion at the end of the session. What does it mean for it to respond when it's convenient to me? I would personally say when you have the time to be able to reply, when you're not in the middle of a discussion, when you're not having dinner together with your family. So as soon as you're able to, you respond. But having also on the other side, the understanding that this might happen. If I send a text message now to, for example, someone that is in Sri Lanka, I might think, oh, they're having dinner, so I might not be responsive. So I can't put the expectations and demands that I have on my side on someone else. When we talk about responsibility, the responsibility that we have towards each other is also a lesson of understanding, to realize the time frame or the cultural expectations that they have on their side, and trying to meet a pace that matches accordingly. A lot of people, for example, know that if you write me a one-word sentence, I don't reply to that because I don't know what you want from me. I don't have anything to reply to that. I'm just waiting to see what you are asking from me. Having that understanding and reaching out to that person is the same as sitting in the room with someone and you're busy and you say, hey, can I ask you a question? And that person looks up. That moment of the person looks up is you knowing you have that kind of engagement, that you know that person is listening. With the virtual aspect, you don't have that. So you have to find other ways to respond in that manner. And we try to do our best as possible. And having that patience and understanding is our responsibility. And that will only allow us to foster better relationship, to try and ensure that we are reaching out to the right people at the right time for the right purposes, and not create a misunderstanding simply because we didn't take the time to think or realize that person is having dinner, that person is working at the moment. So the next question I wanted to address, if it allow me to go to the next question, is while we're building these relationships and we're moving forward, how does it change for us in other places? So due to COVID, many countries and workplaces had to digitalize fast. Lockdown preventing people coming into the offices, and businesses had to take their work online. However, many countries still face lack of access to the internet and services. Workplaces do not always have the equipment and capacity to move their work online, especially when it comes to issues like cybersecurity. I know in the Netherlands, there was this major drive when students weren't allowed to go to school. Some children still don't have laptops at their houses. They have no home computer. How were they able to continue their education, which was happening online, when you don't have access to infrastructure? What happens if your Wi-Fi connection at home is not stable enough to be able to stream an event like this? Another question I'm worried about, how many of you can actually see my screen? If your bandwidth is not strong enough to be able to see what I have on my screen, are you part of this conversation I'm having with you? I'm trying to assess, what can I tell you about, and I'm also learning from you by your responses. If you can't see the screen, are you now being excluded from this process of us exchanging so that we have a real understanding of what is happening online? But even before COVID, did you notice that increasingly we were using our computers to get work done? We're working in the same real life space, but we're also working separately online. And who can participate? Are young people excluded from jobs because they can't apply for them online? Or even worse, when the criteria includes software and hardware that you need to be privileged to access. How many people have said you need to use Microsoft Word? Microsoft Word costs money. If you're lucky and you're part of an educational institution that gives you that for free, that is an amazing opportunity. And that gives you a job. But not everybody has that opportunity. So I can see from your responses, are we ready to integrate our real life and our virtual working experiences? The majority say no, we don't have the infrastructure and skills to be able to digitalize. Some people are unsure. And yes, some people say, yes, my country and workplace are ready to digitalize. And I'm happy that we are making progress. There needs to be more shift into, yes, my country and workplace are ready to digitalize. Unfortunately, although I'm asking all these questions, I'm not actually giving you any answers or even a cause to fight for. But the reason I ask these questions is because I want you to reflect on your environment, on your local community, and assess what you need. Because without being able to step back, following what everybody else is doing makes you dependent on someone to tell you what you need. So taking that step back, engaging in these conversations will allow you to reflect where you are, where you want to be, and how to get there. And this is why I like to ask these questions. So now we can talk about, the next time that we talk, about how can we get to a place where we can be part of that system? How do I move from no, we lack the infrastructure to yes, you're ready to digitalize? And afraid that is also part of the responsibility that we as young people face. Where we grew up as the digital natives, we have a better understanding of what it means to be part of the internet, of what it means to have the internet integrated as part of our real life. And being able to take that step back and being able to assess and tell people and share with people what we need and fighting for that will give us something to move towards the future. So when I talk about these things, I also want to talk about your security online. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about security because this has been the main focus of many governmental and civil society instances. Many spoke about cyberbullying, online hate speech, harassment, identity theft. So being safe online is very much part of our daily responsibility. How many of you are using the same password for everything because it's easier? Having the same password makes it dangerous for you, not just because they can access just that platform that you've used it for, but the data that's on those platforms is so incredibly important because that data defines who you are as you. That data can be used to access your bank accounts, your personal lives, that can really damage some of the things that you've been working towards in the future. So small things like changing your passwords is so incredibly important. And there are free services that can help you with changing your passwords, such as LastPass. There are services that are available that will check if if a website has been compromised. So for example, right this minute, there is an attack on Google. I'm sure there is someone trying to get into Google to try and get passwords. And when it has been compromised, as it has been over many different websites, if you're using a graphic design tool like Canva, if you're using a studying tool like Evernote, these have been compromised sometimes. And they don't tell you. They don't tell you, oh, we have been compromised and you should change your email. They don't always tell you. Sometimes they do tell you and you don't change it. But there are services like LastPass who will tell you. I'm not sponsored by LastPass anyway. I find it very interesting and easy to use. But they can actually help you change your password, and they will give you an update. This website has been compromised. Be safe. Make sure that you are ensuring that your data is your own. So think about your security. And there are so many organizations and events out there that will try to help you realize these different issues. So I don't want to take too much time talking about this, because one of the main issues I want to talk about is your youth role and the environment. So have you ever thought of your environmental impact by using the internet? It's easy to think of the internet as purely a virtual world. The cloud sounds very light, dreamy, innocent. It's really nice that your data syncs instantly, magically, across all your different devices. If you have an iPhone, you're using notes on your phone, it automatically updates to your computer. If you're opening a website on your phone and you're like, I actually want to see that full screen, you can put it up on your TV. Those are options now. We connect wirelessly with anyone. If you can send a Bluetooth message from one phone to another without any problems. We use nothing more than our phone and a Wi-Fi signal. But have you ever thought about its huge, huge environmental impact? So large that its carbon footprint is nearly as big as the entire aviation industry emissions from fuel. Us using the internet. We all know of the typical contributors to our own individual footprint. Less air travel, the food we choose to eat. Do we own a car or a bike or a bicycle? Do we use public transport or not? And what kind of energy do we use in our homes? Do we use fossil fuels, gas, or sun or wind energy? But have you ever thought about what we view, what we save on our computers, and the endless stream of data every day? The photos, the videos, the emails, the music, the messages, the documents, the presentations, and countless of other formats that we're using online. And this daily lifestyle is part of a physical infrastructure. While we cannot see it, there are data centers that are transmitting networks to the devices that we're holding in our hands, that we put in our laps and that we have on our desks. So the transfer and mass storage of our data is enormous and growing at a rapid speed. I'm having a conversation with you right now, and at the same time, I'm receiving all kinds of messages on my phone. I am receiving photos, videos, I get updates, I get the news, I get the weather. How much data is being sent continuously? And these data centers consume such an enormous amount of electricity, of which 80% is coming from fossil fuel power stations. The good news is that there are easy ways that we individually can help solve these problems. And surprisingly, big businesses are trying to help us with it, but there's still a long way to go. So understanding your digital carbon footprint is important, because every time we perform a simple daily action like browsing a website or sending and receiving an email while using an app on our phone, or we're saving a file, data gets transferred between our devices and the servers that the website and software are hosted on. So the more data that is sent and stored, the more electricity and more energy is needed. Even though this might be relatively small at the individual level, you know, how much damage can I do? But imagine with the billions of people globally there, and increasingly every day, more people are connecting to the internet. More people have multiple devices. I just pointed at my phone and a laptop, but how many people also own multiple devices? This really mounts up super fast. So I have 5 top tips that we can think about. The first one, have you ever thought about keeping your laptop and other digital equipment for longer periods? So when we think about pollution, we often think about these data centers, but the internet cannot exist without all the laptops that are connected to it, the mobile phones, the tablets, everything that allows us to access the network. And contrary to popular belief, it's the manufacturer of these devices that weighs the most in the environmental footprint. So we buy and throw away immense numbers of different tech devices every year so that we can be connected to the internet. And the greenest gesture we can put into practice is to reduce our digital footprint. And different societies have different ways to deal with that. When I'm talking to my colleagues here in Europe, we're telling people we need to keep our individual phones for a longer period of time. We need to encourage companies to allow software to run for longer times on old devices. They need to be made more compatible. When I talk to my friends outside of the European Union, we're talking about creating supply chains where people who do not have access to the internet, reselling your phone and choosing to resell your phone at an affordable fee will allow more people to access the internet, but also that the running time of your phone goes for longer. Because if there is less demand coming from the consumer, big businesses will create less. And we need to therefore have these discussions also in these local bases to find solutions that works for you locally. So try to take good care of your equipment and avoid possible damages, and see who can you help when you have had the time with your device. Who can you help with that device? I'm talking not only about mobile phones, but I'm also talking about internet boxes. I am talking about TVs, screens, anything possible. The second one that I wanted to talk about is the consumption of video streaming. Streaming is now one of the biggest consumers of energy regarding our individual internet usage. The transfer that we use for real-time data for videos, often viewed in high definition quality, generates quite high energy consumption. One of the best ways to reduce the internet's energy consumption would be to limit the use of streaming. But how many of you use Netflix? How many of you want to watch the latest episodes that came out that is happening online? I'm just trying to think about all the TV shows that I'm currently watching and thinking, oh yeah, I want to definitely see that the next time possible. But when you are using these services, think about it. Streaming has such a big impact. How can I limit myself? You can choose not to watch everything in HD quality. If you are most of the time playing on your phone at the same time as you're watching TV and the quality is good enough, choose to not use high definition. If you're listening to music, you can choose to download it offline so that you're not putting a lot of capacity on the internet, or choose not to use YouTube for your songs. YouTube streams the video at the same time it's using music. Use a service like iTunes or Spotify to kind of download your music and having access to that music for as much as possible without putting the burden on the internet. Choose services to avoid video streaming as possible. This can make a very big impact if we all do it together. Have you ever thought about the cloud and online storage? A lot of people are encouraging, have everything on the cloud, have anything accessible at the tip of your fingers, but do you need everything accessible at the tip of your fingers? saving all your pictures to the cloud is really nice. But if you really wanted to show someone something, could it possibly wait until you got home and shared it from your hard drive? Having a local hard drive might be better in terms of the capacity that the data centers need to store. And that's one of the choices that you can choose to make. Choose what you want to have online. If you just automatically throw up any meme that you've ever found into the cloud, and all of us are putting the same meme up in the same cloud, we're going to create this a massive amount of information on there that we might not even use anymore. So be reasonable about how you use it. My last 2 points is to learn how to use your equipment better and managing your emails better. When you learn how to use your equipment better, have you ever thought about where you use 4G and where you use Wi-Fi? Wi-Fi, of course, is easy because it's free, but some people use 4G at home because of the quality is better, so it's quicker. You can stream videos. But browsing the Wi-Fi consumes so much less energy than browsing the mobile network. Do you want to translate a word on Google? It uses less energy on your phone than it does on your laptop. So you can make these small changes to learn how to use your equipment better. And this is the same for your emails. And this can help reduce the environmental impact, but I'm not asking you to now go on a massive delete email spree. I'm not asking you to sit there for hours clicking delete, 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 delete. No, that's not going to help, because I'm not asking, because removing is actually not very useful from an environmental point of view, because the impact comes from the email that is in the writing phase, the mail transport phase, and once sent, removing it doesn't change the impact that it had on your carbon footprint. So what can you do? Think about the emails that you're sending. Do I need to send this email just writing okay without further email, and then keep sending more follow-up emails that are just really small? Who are you addressing? How many recipients are you sending it to? Does everybody need to be included in this email? Think about sending fewer emails and limiting the number of participants. When you write your email, do you write it in text format or in HTML? HTML is 12 times less heavy and therefore less energy consuming. And it's the same for attachments. There are some beautiful attachments in email signatures where you have a beautiful picture of the logo of your organization, but this weighs down and takes capacity of your email. So if you have a free, if you're using, for example, Gmail, and you have only 30 gigabytes of capacity, and you keep sending something which has these beautiful marks in them, images in them, it's going to clog up your inbox really quickly. But you can still put a link in so that you can go to your LinkedIn page, or you can go to your website. You can still give people access to you without using pictures. Oh, how many of you have thousands of emails that you've not read from newsletters that you're subscribed to, but you're not reading anymore because not interested anymore? Now it is becoming so much more easier to unsubscribe from these services. Either you can unsubscribe from the newsletter itself at the bottom, or at the top, if you're using Gmail, it says unsubscribe, and Gmail will do it for you. Choose to unsubscribe from the newsletters that you're no longer reading because they're not giving you value. If you think that organization is important, you can make a list of organizations you find important and just once in a while check out their website. And of course, this one is, funnily enough, always added as the whole carbon footprint disclaimer. Do not print your emails when it's unnecessary. And everybody knows this one, so I'm not going to elaborate on that. But with all this, you now hold the keys to use the internet in a more eco-friendly way. And while we can argue that it's not fair that we carry the responsibility for the actions of big businesses, the consequences are for us as a community. We can achieve so much by collaborating and working together. Cautiously aware that I'm running a little bit late, I just want to make my last conclusion. So the good and the bad news. We want to become adults so early now because we want to have ownership of our destinies. We are choosing things earlier. We want to have voting rights. We want to be part of the table. We want to sit at the table and discuss. But this also means that we need to take the responsibilities that come with it. We cannot demand to sit at these tables, to be part of this discussion, but refuse to learn what is needed to make the right decisions. So what is the bad news? Life is a never-ending journey of learning. And that might be a really scary thought. You may have thought that you finally understood how Facebook worked, and then TikTok turns up and you have to learn an entire new set of behaviors. You have to learn all the new rules to be able to make that part of your skill set that you need in your daily life. But what is the good news? We do have some ownership of our destinies. And we can create the change that we want to see in our societies by being open to learning, by wanting to be a teacher and help others, and by choosing every time, every day to do your best. So these are my 4 points that will help you along your path to knowledge. And while it's not all inclusive, it is a start to help improving our world by actions that you can start with yourself. Re-navigate your relationships. Be kind and patient. Try to understand cultures and time to ensure that you can get the most of the relationships to foster a future together and a future with your community. So you can choose every day to be better. Know the skills for the changing workplace. Take a step back and look at what you need and what you want to achieve and how to get there. And by navigating your relationships, you can find the right people to help you to get there. While you do these things, be safe. Protect yourself and your loved ones online. Make sure that you are together in this and ensuring that you and your data and your future is going to be in safe hands by making sure your access to the internet, your engagement on the internet is safe behavior. And we have an alarming environmental impact on the internet. It's your choice if you choose to help us meet the Sustainable Development Goals. And it would be amazing if you joined us to get there. So thank you very much for joining me this past half an hour. And if you have any questions, I am very happy to answer them.